the only brand we had on the yard main line at that time, I think, was Rick Turflinger. And so Rick was out there. And of course, Doug the Thug was out there, and Rotten Richard.
Well, I think you said in one of your podcasts that the Hells Angels kind of had sort of dual status in the AB. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. What happened was that when some members of the Hells Angels would come into prison, like San Quentin or Old Folsom, depending on their status within the Red and White, they would essentially adopt the Aryan Brotherhood status. In other words, they were members of the Aryan Brotherhood. And, I've been trying to think of the brother's name. He was a big old boy, weighed over 400 pounds. Now he was HA. And when he would come in, then he would adopt the Aryan Brotherhood status. So, there was a give and take relative to that. The biggest problem that you had with the brand back in those days was that the minute a member paroled, you just kind of like took off that coat, if you will, of AB and put on an HA patch or another type of patch, but typically it was an HA patch. And because they were there locally, you had the Oakland chapter at that time. You still have the Oakland chapter, but I think Rotten Richard was in the adjustment center there with us, and he ran. I think he was president of the Oakland chapter at that time. But,
well, the thing I was wondering was, at that time when I was there, if you were identified as AB, you were just bagged up usually and sent to the adjustment center.
Yeah, that's pretty much always the case. Yeah, so that's why, particularly at that time, no one wore the shamrock for that reason. Because if you were validated or identified as a brand member, then, like you say, you were gaffled up and you were put in the hole because they didn't want you on the main line. At that time, particularly between the adjustment center, which was the overflow for the shelf at that time, and it may still be, I don't know, but I would put CB radios like an East Block, and I had the main unit in the hole with me so that I can communicate with individuals out there on the main line. So, I mean, you had a number of things going back then, as you will probably recall, when they took somebody off the shelf and say they were taking them to New Miller Hospital, which was quite a walk. All you heard was dead man walking. And the instruction was that everybody had to turn away and turn their back to that individual walking as he was escorted and leg irons and handcuffs and waist chains to New Miller Hospital. So, but I think San Quentin is now level 2.
Well, it's parole violators, isn't it? Something like that.
Something along those lines, which essentially makes it a level 2. And I think Old Folsom now is a level 3. I mean, they're old prisons. And so they don't have the security that the new prisons have. And so they use them for a lesser custody prisoner now. Back in our day, that was the big house. San Quentin was the big house and Old Folsom was the big house. And
well, they certainly looked like it. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
I actually only went to Old Folsom for one night, and it was creepy. It was like old men coughing their lungs out.
Yeah.
And noises and
yeah.
I remember when that feeling.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I hear what you're saying, because when they took me to Old Folsom, I was convoyed up from Tracy. I'd been in a few altercations down there, and I got to Old Folsom, and they took me through the big old black strap iron gate in the front there, and they had the gunner up on top. And the first thing he told me, he says, "Boy, we shoot people around here." And I just looked at him. So as I was walking across the yard, they were taking me to the hole. I was the youngest person there. And as I walked across the yard,